In modern equity markets, information parity is the baseline. Every institutional analyst operates with access to the same corporate filings, regulatory disclosures, and real-time market data. Traditional corporate reporting is merely the starting line. Reading an annual report provides no competitive edge when every market participant reads the same document. This creates a specific tension for junior analysts. Raw data access, regardless of volume, does not automatically generate a differentiated investment insight. A research analyst functions as a translator, converting vast quantities of complex financial data into an actionable narrative that an investor can use to make a decision. Producing high-efficacy research requires building a specialized, legally bounded document governed by a strict internal architecture. This document relies on three core pillars: rigid structural boundaries, the clean segregation of facts from analytical views, and the use of methodological checklists. Professional equity research is an act of structured filtering and regulated deduction. Translating data into advice requires strict statutory oversight. In India, SEBI establishes the legal framework for what can officially be labeled a research report. The law defines this legal boundary by detailing exactly what is excluded from being classified as a research report. Broad market commentaries and sector-wide technical analyses remain outside this definition because they lack a specific targeted company focus. Simple statistical summaries and non-client internal communications are also legally excluded, as they do not constitute formal research for public consumption. To meet the inclusion criteria, actionable research must target a specific subject company and deliver a recommendation corroborated by data. A research report is a legally protected status carrying significant compliance weight. It is a category distinct from financial journalism. Inside the report, a rigorous structural divide must exist between verifiable historical information and forward-looking analysis. This segregation ensures that readers can distinguish between compiling fixed data and forming subjective analytical judgments. The fact-based inputs rely entirely on historical numbers that are immune to interpretation. This column populates with specific categories: peer group comparisons, shareholding patterns, and key financial indicators. These inputs are derived from quantitative calculations, quarterly results, and official annual reports. The view-based inputs represent the analyst's synthesis, requiring subjective judgment and industry experience. This section details the company's business trajectory, its key strengths, potential concerns, and an overview of the competitive landscape. These views are shaped by direct management interactions and the analyst's personal understanding of the company's underlying business model. Conflating historical facts with subjective views degrades the integrity of the document and introduces unnecessary bias into the investment thesis. Practitioners in complex environments frequently face the error of ineptitude, a failure to apply knowledge correctly despite possessing it. As Atul Gawande demonstrated, fields like medicine and aviation use checklist methodologies to prevent these errors in high-information environments. Applying a checklist to the view-based column of a research report enforces analytical discipline on the most subjective part of the process. Qualitative checks begin with the revenue model. You must verify exactly how the business generates its money before proceeding with further analysis. The checklist then requires an evaluation of competitive moats and the strength of industry entry barriers. Analysts must also assess management integrity, often by tracking the buying and selling behavior of company insiders. Following the qualitative assessment, the checklist shifts to quantitative verification. This phase requires verifying the sustainability of operating margins against historical performance. The final checks focus on capital efficiency, specifically examining working capital metrics and leverage ratios. This rigorous protocol strips emotional narrative bias from the report, forcing an objective evaluation of subjective views. The architecture of the report culminates when all facts and filtered views resolve into a single standardized rating. Absolute ratings, such as buy, hold, or sell, represent the expected absolute return of the security. These ratings are bound by a time horizon. A buy rating typically implies a specific expectation, such as a 10% return over the next 12 months. Relative ratings, like overweight or underweight, function differently. These ratings measure the security's performance against a specific stated benchmark, such as a market index or a peer group. Regulatory mandates require analysts to clearly define the specific parameters and definitions for these terms within the report's footnotes. A published weighting requires a mathematically defined benchmark and an explicit time horizon to remain analytically meaningful. Perfect financial logic can still fail to generate alpha if the delivery is flawed. The editing phase is often where research loses its impact. One major failure mode is thesis burial, where the core idea is lost under tangential details. Analysts also fail when they use excessively complex language to mask gaps in their analytical logic. Inconsistency is a third fatal error, occurring when bearish text contradicts a bullish final rating. To manage dense data, analysts should replace heavy, confusing numerical tables with clear, visual charts to aid in immediate comprehension. The final editing phase requires the exact same level of discipline as the initial data gathering process. Compliant equity research ultimately relies on three things. First, absolute clarity. Second, structural simplicity. And third, rigidly defined methodologies.